Welcome to this session. Today we're diving into a pretty heated topic, this whole new demand for the release of what they're calling the Maxwell tapes.
Yeah, it's really something, right? We're hearing calls not only to open up the Epstein files, but now to also, spill the details of these 9-hour interviews with the infamous Ghislaine Maxwell.
Exactly, it's like there's this growing push from figures like Senators Durbin and Whitehouse. They argue that unless we get the full recordings of these interviews, how can the public really trust what Maxwell's saying?
Yep. And when you think about it, the fact that Maxwell, alongside, these politically charged names, is under such scrutiny, it really raises questions about transparency at the highest levels, doesn't it?
It sure does. I mean, here we have Todd Blanche, Trump's former criminal defense attorney and now the Deputy Attorney General, having interviewed Maxwell for 9 hours. That's a lengthy conversation by any standard.
Right? 9 hours is like almost an entire day. It makes you wonder, why spend that much time if there isn't something substantial to uncover?
Well, according to the demands, it's all about ensuring that there's no selective withholding of information. Senators are worried that without releasing these tapes, Ms. Maxwell could be possibly setting herself up for a pardon or a commutation
Yeah.
by playing coy.
I get that. But don't you think there's also a bit of political maneuvering at play? I mean, if you look at the context, it's not just about justice. A lot of this ties back to previous controversies.
Absolutely. It's less about pure legal procedure and more about like reinforcing accountability in a system where power often shields the elite.
Right. And isn't it interesting how this mirrors the broader calls to release the Epstein files? Both sets of materials are seen as key pieces to restore public faith.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword. On one side, you have the demand for transparency in cases already shrouded in mystery, and on the other, the suggestion that the government's withholding these recordings undermines the separation of powers.
Speaking of separation of powers, some critics say that putting too much emphasis on tape releases could blur the lines between political oversight and judicial integrity.
That's a fair point. I mean, it's like arguing that every detail in an investigation needs to be public to guarantee fairness. But then again, how do we balance that with protecting sensitive information?
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. It's a tricky balance. The senators seem to be saying that if we don't have these tapes, we have a sort of secret narrative that might be skewed purposely.
And think about it. These 9-hour sessions, if they were recorded in full, could offer a ton of insight into Maxwell's testimony. It's like listening to a whole story without any parts missing.
But here's what bugs me a little. Could releasing such tapes also lead to, a media circus where every soundbite is spun into a political weapon?
I see that point, and yeah, there's always that risk. Yet the argument from the senators is if you want the public to trust the process, you need to see everything, not just the bits that are convenient for narrative building.
Right. True. It's like if you're a referee in a game, the best play is to call every foul correctly and let everyone see it, instead of only calling some.
Exactly. And here, the Supreme Court is even in the mix. Maxwell's legal team is urging for a review to reverse her conviction. That move practically throws another log on this already blazing
Yeah, that's
fire.
intense. The whole thing sounds like it's as if we're watching a courtroom drama unfold live, with every new development adding fuel.
It really does. And you can almost see the parallels with past high-profile cases where transparency was touted as the remedy to restore, like, public trust.
Yep. But here's a thought. Even if we get these tapes out, will they really clarify things? Or will they just add more layers to an already opaque situation?
Good question. If you think about it, it's like opening up a particularly convoluted diary. The context matters so much. Without the complete narrative, you might end up with dangling threads that get interpreted in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, and then you have pundits and lobbyists who, they might cherry pick parts to push their own agendas.
Exactly, and that's where the critics come in. They're saying if we only get selective releases, the so-called victory in transparency could backfire, leading to selective reinterpretation by the media and political rivals.
Right, absolutely. Also, the history of cases like these suggests that Even extensive tape releases haven't always cleared the air. Sometimes it just makes it murkier by adding more details that are hard to verify independently.
True. It's like that old saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The tapes might reveal inconsistencies, but they might also just deepen suspicions without closing the case.
Yeah, I feel that. And let's not ignore the political undercurrents here. The references to Trump's lackeys and others, it almost feels like this whole situation is another stage in the continuous drama between powerful political factions.
It absolutely is. There's a notion here that justice cannot be truly served if political interests continue to influence which details are revealed when. The whole team justice idea seems to be at stake.
Exactly. Right? And when you drill down into the layers of these interviews, it almost seems like you're not just investigating a crime, but a whole ecosystem of power and influence.
Yes, it's a window into how political narratives are constructed. The 9-hour interview itself could serve as both a piece of legal evidence and a kind of political manifesto, depending on how it's framed.
Yeah. And that's where the necessity for the tape's release becomes more compelling. The public deserves to see that full picture.
Absolutely, but here's where I have a bit of a challenge to that view. Full disclosure might jeopardize, sensitive legal strategies or even put undue pressure on witnesses. There's a layer of protection sometimes
True.
needed.
I hear you. But if those protections lead to a lack of accountability, then aren't we compromising on justice in another way?
That's a valid critique. It's really a tug of war between transparency and the integrity of legal processes. You can't fully satisfy both without a middle ground that still hasn't been clearly defined in these cases.
Absolutely. And practically speaking, if the tapes show selective editing or omissions, then it undercuts not just the specific case, but the very idea of a fair judicial process.
Exactly. It's as if the tapes are a litmus test for how much truth can be held back by the powerful. It's like, if you only get one side of the story, who really wins?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And look at the broader societal impact. This isn't just legal theater. It impacts public belief in the government's ability to, police itself.
Right. And if you consider the historical context, these kinds of revelations have previously shifted political winds significantly. They serve as a reminder that transparency is not just a legal requirement, but a democratic one.
Exactly. So, wrapping up, it seems that while releasing the Maxwell tapes could enhance public trust, it's also fraught with challenges, both legal and political. The balancing act here is nothing short of complex.
Absolutely. It's a debate that touches on everything from separation of powers to the undercurrents of political influence. And while there's no perfect solution, one thing's for sure: the demand for transparency is only getting louder.
Yep, indeed. And that in itself might be the most powerful message we've got. A call for justice that's as relentless as the pursuit of truth should always be.
Precisely. Thanks for walking through this with such insightful points. It's these detailed conversations that really, shed light on the bigger picture.
Definitely. Here's hoping that transparency prevails and that in the end, justice isn't compromised by politics.
Absolutely. And with every new development, we'll be right here to discuss and dissect it all. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.